Hello YouTube, and I'm back with a quick review of the FC Pro game controller from 8Bitdo. This controller is a Bluetooth controller compatible with Android, iOS, Mac, Windows, and most recently Nintendo Switch, which is why I picked this up. I was looking for a multi-purpose controller. 8Bitdo have been making a range of classic inspired controllers, and in this case we very much have something inspired from the Nintendo Famicom. Aesthetically, the controller is very pleasing. It has a definite feel of the Famicom, and that look also passes on to the packaging. The aesthetics are very nice. It's well packaged, comes in this slipcase with a nice foam insert, and at the bottom there's your box with extras. It also comes with a USB cable, which charges the internal battery. Again, this is coloured based on the Famicom, and it comes with a keyring. An FC30, everything old is new keyring. It's a nice touch, but very much superfluous. The main event is the controller. And I've tried this controller now with Android, both wired and on Bluetooth, Windows, both wired and on Bluetooth, and Nintendo Switch, which only operates on Bluetooth that I'm aware of. I've had very mixed results. I have found it worked very nicely on Android. It was very much seamless. You just press the power button, it automatically will start up in kind of essentially Android connection mode. I can't remember what they call that. I think it's like direct D mode. You press the sharing button, it connected via Bluetooth straight away, and away I went. I tried it with emulators such as RetroArch and native applications, and it worked quite nicely. I had mixed results on the other platforms, especially the Switch. Initially it paired very nicely, and I tried it out with Breath of the Wild and Sonic Mania, but it actually kept desyncing on me, and I've never been able to maintain a solid connection. After 2 games I tried, it worked better with Breath of the Wild, which is rather surprising. I thought the small 3D sticks would have been a problem for that, but believe it or not, these are actually really nice, and they do click in, so they do have L3 and R3 buttons. As I hadn't showed at the top, actually, there's L1, L2, R1, R2, and there's a charging port. So it does have the shoulder button, so it's very much a classic controller style thing, or classic controller pro. However, when I played Sonic Mania, I ran into a number of problems with input latency and buffering. So it would kind of buffer your jumps or your presses. I guess I didn't notice it on Breath of the Wild because ultimately it's not quite as fast paced as Sonic the Hedgehog. So overall, it was very much a mixed performance on the Switch, and the same applied to the PC. For some reason, the sync mode, which is meant to be basically when you start up, you hold the power button and one of the different modes to kind of enable it to start, and say Y is Switch, X is Windows. And the X mode I could not get to work with me for Windows, but the normal just Android mode, the D input, that seemed to work more or less. So eventually I got it to work on Windows, and it was passable. I did find on some emulators it was it kind of held the input a bit too long, but as a kind of a general purpose controller, it's passable. That's the best way to describe it. Now, in terms of form and layout, as you can see, it is very, as I say, classically inspired. It's very much a combination of a SNES controller in terms of kind of more styling and layout. And I suppose what Nintendo had done to update that with the 2 sticks, the Classic Controller Pro. Now, the one notable thing about the FC30 Pro is that it is a very small controller. If you compare it to the SNES controller, you can see it's smaller in every dimension. And it is also much smaller than a Pro controller. Now, normally, I suppose this wouldn't be a problem, and this may not be a problem for many people, but for me, I found that it made the controller a little uncomfortable, especially the shoulder buttons. They were just a little too small for me, whereas the SNES controller was a nicer feel. I could get over that though. The biggest problem I actually found was with the diagonal buttons here, or the diamond buttons. The D-pad worked quite nicely, as did the 3D sticks. I didn't use these all that much, so I have less commentary on them, but they're not the best, at least for these 2. But these I had a big problem with, possibly because of my fat thumb. As you can see, my thumb covers the buttons almost entirely. Now, if we compare that to a SNES, no way. In fact, when I put my fingers over one, you'll see the other one is completely clear. Even on the Pro controller, or a classic controller, it's the exact same. So I found myself constantly inadvertently hitting additional buttons. So this is obviously a personal preference. Again, different people with different sized thumbs may have different mileage, but these buttons were just too small for my liking. They also had very small throw distance and they pressed largely into the housing, more so than a SNES or a Classic Controller Pro. You can see how barely above the housing they are. So in short, this is aesthetically very pleasing. It came very nicely packaged and it can do a job across a lot of platforms. But for me personally, this would not be replacing a day-to-day pad, and it's more of a nice looking device than it is something that's ergonomically kind of comfortable to use and well set up for kind of long gaming sessions. So there we have it. That's my take on the FC Pro game controller. I do note that 8Bitdo do a range of other controllers. Now some of them are actually much more close to the Super Nintendo. I suspect that actually may be a better fit for me. I picked this one up because of the 386 and the Switch support, but in future I may try out their Super Nintendo compatible one. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. See you again in the future. Take care.